So we're talking about desire, opinion, and revelation. Yeah, sounds boring, doesn't it? A little bit. A little lofty. Thank you, Bernie. That was the word, not boring, a little lofty. Thank you, Ernest. I do have a quote by Ernest Holmes that I think speaks to where we are, not only as a country, but in the world, how we have become divided. He says, one of the most prolific fields for race hallucination. Does everybody know what that is? Race being all of us. When I said race consciousness to a woman one day, and she thought I was talking about her race and my race, and she got offended. And so then I could tell on her face she was offended. So then I had to say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. In my belief system, when we talk race consciousness, we're talking about humanity's consciousness. So maybe I should say humanity's consciousness. So race hallucination, strange as it may seem, is the field of so-called revealed religion. One of the most prolific fields for race hallucination, strange as it may seem, is the field of so-called revealed religion. Accumulated acceptances of pronounced beliefs have finally created such a subjective reaction to them that people believe all sorts of things reasonable and unreasonable. We're going to war in the name of God. We're doing this in the name of God. And if it is not of peace, remember Diane's reading? If God is peace, we can't go to war in the name of God. God doesn't want us at war. God doesn't want us to hate our neighbors. God doesn't want us to judge other people. It is that level of consciousness that is pure and knows only good. And yes, we are playing all underneath that, even though we are all part of God. There is an essence of God that is unchangeable and constant, that vibration of good. And we all have an opportunity, if we have that divine essence birthed in and through and as us, we have that opportunity always, every single day, to remember that and be that reflection. And so yesterday, I had an opportunity to be interviewed, evidently by King 5 News. It was just somebody with a camera that said, could I interview you? And I did. Now I'm thinking I should have done my hair and whatever. Because evidently there was a picture of me this morning on King 5 News. Laura Gutierrez told me, and I'm like, oh, okay. I guess that was how I was supposed to look, my first time ever on the news. So anyway, she said to me, why do you do this? And not meaning me, meaning Genesis. Why do we do this? And so I spoke for all of us, and I hope you won't mind what I said. I said we do it because that is what humanity is all about. Helping people help themselves. Really not falling into that trap of what the current news headline is and who they believe we are as humanity. Really knowing who we are as humanity. That we are here to be of service to each other. And sometimes that means helping people that if we didn't help them, they wouldn't have an opportunity to feel safe. So I'm going to share a story that was shared yesterday by the gentleman. His name is Don, and I'm sorry I forget his last name, but he leads up DESC and he's not the head of DESC, but he leads up gathering volunteers to outfit these apartments. Does everybody know what we did yesterday? Does anybody not know? Okay, so Estelle House is an apartment that was built on Rainier Avenue, and it is for people who are homeless and have mental illness. And then DESC finds these people and moves them into the apartments. However, the apartments are apartments, and these people are moving in with what they've lived on the street with. So whatever in their backpack. And so we went in as a community. We adopted 13 apartments, and you outfit them with sheets and cooking utensils and toilet paper and towels and shower curtains. So you make it a livable space. You make it a livable space. And he shared with us They asked one person that's living in a different apartment how it changed her life. And she said, for the first time when you handed me that key, for the first time in my life, I realized that I could lock a door and nobody could come into my room unless I said it was okay. For the first time, I could go into a restroom and know I was safe. And when I shared that with my husband, he said, isn't it amazing what we take for granted as just part of our life, because I've never been homeless. And so that is that is who I think we are as a community. You know, we proved that even though it was a competition and Courtney and I really wanted to win, the ultimate winners were the homeless people in Highline. You know, those were the ultimate winners. We did more than 2,600 pounds of food. And we did that the 1st of February, turned around 2 weeks later and outfitted 13 apartments. Now, I want you to look around. We are not the biggest community in Seattle yet. And yet, I think we have the biggest heart. And so, one of the things Ken Gordon said was, wouldn't it be nice if we quit letting our opinions decide what our values were, and turn it and let our values decide what our opinions are? So think about the difference, because I think right now we are so polarized that we have started to let our opinions become fact without any basis, and then we let those facts drive who people perceive we are, so that they must perceive those are our values. And what if every time we thought we had an opinion, we did a little check and went, okay, what value does that align in me? Before I burst out and say, this is my opinion about anything. And most of us don't even bother to say, this is my opinion. We just offer it up like it's gospel. Thank you, Bernie. Bernie's going to be here to fill in those words that I can't think of right away. Thank you for that. So gospel, we do. We offer things, we say things like it's gospel. And unless it's fact, unless it's provable, it's just an opinion. And let's remember something about facts. You know, there was a fact at one time that the world was flat. And that fact changed. And so we have to be open to the idea that even facts have an opportunity to change. Even facts. But what if we looked at things that we said, that we believed, and then our opinions supported that? And so I had, you kind of have to check in. If you believe that human life is precious, then you can't support capital punishment. Right? And I'm just asking, because I realize that sometimes I can be very solid in something that I think that I have a real strong opinion about, and then I check in on my value and think, oh, we've got a gap. We've got a gap, or I've got a gap. And if I've got a gap, then I've got to figure out what's more important, my opinion or my value. Does that make sense? So just take a moment and kind of do a check with yourself, like, what are your top values? We did this in a class recently, and amazingly, most of us said integrity was our top value. So if integrity is our top value, that means, does it not, that we are integrous, that we are honest all the time? Think about that. Integrity is my top value. Has there been anybody here that hasn't maybe fudged just a little? We call them little white lies because they didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings, or, just that little, oh. And in his book, The Four Agreements, what he says is little white lies are just gather them all together, because a lie's a lie. Just gather them all together. And so how do you speak your truth? How do you stand for what you believe in and hold that with knowing that some people may vehemently disagree with you? You know, I posted a couple things on Facebook and I was waiting for somebody to say something really negative and nobody did, and I was surprised. And maybe it was because I chose to post things that were positive. That, you know, you couldn't, there was one gentleman who recently decided that he had an AR-15. It wasn't, but he said it's like an AR-15. And he turned it over to the police department because he said, you know what? I don't need an AR-15. Nobody does. And so he turned it over, and I reposted his story and said, congratulations, or I said, thank you for your courage to do that. Because it's humanity that's going to change the world, not policy, not a law, not whatever side you are politically, whatever religion you follow. We're going to change the world individually because we're going to decide enough is enough. That's how the world changes. You can't write a law that's going to make people decent if they choose not to be decent. You can't. But you can decide as the other thing that I posted was, God bless these high school students who have said enough is enough. You do something or we're walking out of school on April 20th. And I love the date they chose. So for anybody who knows 420, just saying. Yeah, and it's the Columbine, so there's not a laugh there, so I'm sorry. I forgot that piece. It is the anniversary of the Columbine shooting. That is why they picked it. So I'm sorry. I had forgotten that piece. Should not make a joke.
It's still funny. We said that when the Columbine thing happened.
Oh, you did?
We did a light moment.
Okay. All right. You're right. So it is the anniversary of the Columbine shooting. And the when can our children go to school and feel safe? And if you're a parent, when can you feel safe sending your kids to school? Really, do we want our kids going to school with metal detectors? I don't. And that one girl said yesterday, he couldn't have killed 17 people with a knife. We as humanity have to start to respond to this with our values and not our opinions. We have to start saying there is something really wrong in a country that has so much to offer. And we do. Even with all of this, we are still a country that has so much to offer. And yet we have forgotten who we are as a country, because we're letting the news tell us who we're supposed to be. And so part of being part of this community is to remember, who are we? Who are we? And how do you show up? How do you say enough is enough? And so it's from that place of knowing that if I'm God-informed, peace has to be the place I come from. Peace has to be the place I come from. We have to treat everybody equally in this country. It's part of our Constitution. I don't know, Constitution, Bill of Rights, one of the Constitution, that all men and women, they forgot us too, were created equal. All of us. And yet somehow we forget that because we get caught up in our opinions. And we get fearful about if I let everybody come into this country and get a job, then I'll not have a job. That's limited thinking. And if we really believe in this philosophy, there's more than enough for all of us. And so every single one of us can be abundant. And if we're not, it's because we're limiting ourselves. The government's not limiting us. Your boss isn't limiting you. I'm not limiting you. You're limiting yourself. That's what we teach. That's what we teach here. The limits are ours. They're not out there. And so for me, it's finding that space here, creating that vibration here at Genesis, and letting it vibrate out through these Sunday services, through our home groups, so we can make a wider vibration. I can't imagine if something like that happens here. You know, it's happened in Colorado, so it hasn't happened that far away. And I've talked to Christine S. about, because she teaches at a school down in Federal Way, and about, Lakewood, sorry, yes it is. But there's a disconnect, you know, there's a disconnect with our teenagers. And how do we get them reconnected? Wouldn't it be great if they started to show up here, like Christine S.'s kids, or like Linda's child? You know, where they could probably learn at a young age, I'm good enough. Already, I'm good enough. Because you know what? That divine spark chose to be born in this form, and nobody can take that away from me. I'm good enough. And whatever happens, I'm loved enough already. Because no matter who my parents are or how they treat me, God and I were like this. See, we forget that. We make it all about the world of effects. Everything that's out there in front of us. And then we make that our reality because we buy into it. I can't imagine. I saw Edward Donaldson's post, and I know a couple other people who have seen Black Panther. And I'd like to talk to them. But his post was, I love the movie and I don't want to talk about it. I just want to remain in the blackness. And it made me cry. Because I have never in my life had to feel like I didn't belong because of the color of my skin. Shame on us in this country. And God bless whoever did that movie. We shouldn't have people going to movies. I'm 66 years old, and it certainly didn't happen before I was born. Going to a movie that they can absolutely, totally relate to and feel proud of and feel honored by. And so for me, this is why we're here as community, is to get out of our heads and get into our hearts and start to realize, as good as we have it, we need to reach across and hold and touch people that may not be experiencing life exactly like us, and let them know that we're walking with them and that we love them for who they are and why they're here, because they're chosen also. Absolutely chosen, just like you and I. And so it's just from that place. There was a quote, and I should have known who wrote it, and I didn't. And so I had to look it up. The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. Paulo Coelho said that. And he's one of my favorite writers. The world is changed by your example. Think of who we are as a community and how we show up. That's an example. How do we want to be seen in the world as a community and as individuals? Everybody has an opinion. They're like noses. We all got them. That's not the original quote. I know that. And there are children in the sanctuary. And it's Sunday. So you can switch that up in your mind if you want to. We all have them. Every single person has them. And if we're going to come together and start to heal as individuals and as a country, we have to start really honoring the individuality of people and their opinions. And really start to talk to each other. And really start to break down those walls. And be that love that we say we are every single Sunday morning. I stand in it, and sometimes I fail miserably at it, and I know that. And yet, when I do, I pick myself up, and I stand in it again. And it's not easy to be, I was going to say warrior, but we need to come up with a new word. And so love bunny popped into my head. It's not easy to be a love bunny in the world. But I challenge each of us to start to do that. To really be who we have said as Genesis we are. A community built on unconditional love. And so we get to show up as that. Every single one of us, every single day. And so let's pray from there. Father, Mother, God, thank you, Pete. There's a healing, a revealing, an essence within each one of us that is screaming out loud to be seen and heard. And that is the God within us. It is that place within us that is just wanting to break open our hearts, to really wants us to say yes to humanity, yes to each other, yes, yes, yes. And so I open up from that place in my heart, from that place of knowing the truth of who I am, God informed, to know that love, that compassion, that creativity, that energy that is the divine is me. And as I break open my heart to that, I know that each person here has the opportunity to do the same. To truly feel that vibration within them that is beating their heart right now, saying, yes, yes, yes. And so as I speak my word, it's for the knowingness of each and every one of us, as whether we know how or whether we're just learning, that we start to change the world by our mere presence. That people look at us and say, I want what they have. I want to be part of that makes me laugh and makes me cry and makes me feel safe. I want that. And so what I know with that is each one of us has an opportunity every day to truly connect to the truth of who we are by merely putting their hand on their heart and feeling that beat, that drum, that essence that just goes out and reverberates across the world and touches hearts known and unknown. So we're that and more. And so I just say, thank you, Mother, Father, God, for this community, for this revealing and healing that's going on. As we turn these words over, it is said, it is done. And I say thank you. And so it is. Amen.